The young white officer grabbed the 73-year-old black woman by her thin arm and yanked her out of the booth so hard that her purse fell to the floor of the diner. Her cane clattered against the tile. Her glasses slid halfway down her nose. Officer Brad Henley was 26 years old. He had been on the police force for 14 months. He stood 6 feet 2 inches tall and weighed 230 pounds. The woman in his grip stood 5 feet 2 inches and weighed barely 110 pounds. "I said get up, lady. We had a complaint that you were being disruptive. Now you are coming with me." The elderly black woman did not resist. She did not yell. She did not try to pull her arm away. She just looked up at the young officer with quiet eyes and said one sentence in a calm, steady voice. "Son, I have been sitting in this booth eating my lunch for 47 minutes. I have not spoken loudly to anyone. I would like to know exactly what I have done wrong." Officer Henley laughed, a short, cruel laugh. "What you did wrong is sit down in the wrong neighborhood, ma'am. Now move. Or I am putting these cuffs on you right now." 23 customers in Murphy's Family Diner on Maple Avenue went completely silent. The waitress, a young white woman named Crystal Davis, stood frozen behind the counter holding a coffee pot. Her hands were shaking. The truth was that Crystal had been the one who called the police 15 minutes earlier. She had told the dispatcher that a homeless-looking elderly woman was making other customers uncomfortable. The elderly woman in question had ordered a full lunch with a tip. She had paid in cash. She had not made a single sound. Her only crime had been sitting in a booth in the wrong part of town, dressed in a simple navy dress and pearl earrings, on a Tuesday afternoon in October. Officer Henley dragged the elderly woman through the diner toward the front door. Her cane was still on the floor. Her glasses fell off completely. An old man in a corner booth, a retired teacher named Harold Peterson, slowly took out his phone and started recording. 3 other customers did the same thing. The elderly black woman did not say another word until they were outside on the sidewalk. Then she looked up at Officer Henley one more time. "Son, I would like to make one phone call before you put me in your patrol car. May I please have my purse?" Officer Henley laughed again. "Lady, you can make your phone call from the booking station. Now get in the back of the car." He shoved her into the back of the patrol vehicle and slammed the door. "Before this story breaks your heart and rebuilds it again, do me one small favor. If you believe an old woman's dignity should never be measured by the color of her skin or the neighborhood she sits down in, hit that like button right now and subscribe to the channel. It costs you nothing. Now let's rewind. Because to understand what was about to happen at the police station that afternoon, you have to know who the elderly black woman in the back of that patrol car really was. Her name was Mrs. Eleanor Washington. She was 73 years old. She had been born and raised in Birmingham, Alabama during segregation. Her father had been a pastor. Her mother had been a school teacher. Eleanor had attended the historically black Spelman College on a full scholarship. She had earned a law degree from Howard University Law School. She had spent 41 years as a civil rights attorney before retiring 6 years ago. She had also raised one son, a quiet boy who had grown up watching his mother fight injustice in every courtroom in the southeastern United States. That son had decided, at the age of 12, that he wanted to fix the system from the inside. He had become a police officer at 23, then a sergeant at 28, then a lieutenant at 34, then a captain at 41. That son was now Police Chief Marcus Washington, 48 years old, the first black police chief in the history of Riverside County, Tennessee, sworn in 14 months earlier. The exact same 14 months Officer Brad Henley had been on the force. Officer Henley had no idea who Eleanor Washington was. The diner was located 23 miles outside the small town where Chief Washington's headquarters was based. Eleanor had driven to that diner that afternoon for one specific reason. The diner had once been a sit-in location during the Civil Rights Movement of 1963. Eleanor's older brother, James Washington, had been one of the 4 young black students who had been arrested that day for trying to order a sandwich at the whites-only counter. James had been beaten by the police that night. He had died from his injuries 3 days later. He had been 19 years old. Eleanor had been 10 years old at the time. October 14th was the 62nd anniversary of her brother's death. Every single year on this date for the last 40 years, Eleanor Washington had driven to Murphy's Family Diner. She had sat in the same booth. She had ordered a turkey sandwich and a cup of black coffee. She had quietly read the small Bible her brother had been carrying in his pocket on the night he was killed. It was her way of remembering him. Her way of saying, "We are still here, James, we are still here." Crystal Davis, the 24-year-old waitress, had only worked at the diner for 3 weeks. She did not know the diner's history. She had never heard of the 1963 sit-in. She had taken one look at the elderly black woman in the corner booth and decided to call the police. Officer Brad Henley had taken one look at the situation and decided to drag the woman out by her arm. In the back of the patrol car, Eleanor Washington sat very quietly. She was not afraid. She had been arrested 7 times during the civil rights movement. She had been threatened by men far more dangerous than Officer Henley. She knew exactly what was happening, and she knew exactly how it was going to end. As Officer Henley drove toward the local police station, Eleanor finally spoke to him from the back seat. Her voice was calm. "Son, you should call your dispatcher and run my name before we go any further. Eleanor Washington, date of birth March 14, 1952. I would not want you to be unprepared for what is about to happen at your station." Officer Henley laughed. "Lady, I do not care if your name is Queen Elizabeth. You are going to be processed and booked just like everybody else." Eleanor nodded slowly. She did not say another word. The patrol car pulled into the parking lot of the Riverside County Police Station at 2:47 in the afternoon. Officer Henley got out, opened the back door, and pulled Eleanor out by her arm again. He did not give her back her cane. He did not return her glasses. He walked her into the building through the front door. 12 other officers were inside the lobby. The desk sergeant, a 46-year-old white officer named Jim Calloway, looked up from his computer. He saw the elderly black woman in the navy dress with the disheveled hair. He saw Officer Henley dragging her by the arm, and his entire face went white. Sergeant Jim Calloway had been on the force for 22 years. He had personally served under Police Chief Marcus Washington for 14 months. He had also attended a small private dinner at Chief Washington's home 8 months ago, where he had met the chief's mother. "Brad, stop right there. Right now." Officer Henley turned around, confused. "Sarge, I am bringing in a disorderly conduct from Murphy's Diner." Sergeant Calloway stood up from his desk so fast his chair fell backward. He walked across the lobby toward Eleanor Washington. He stopped 3 feet in front of her. He took off his hat. "Mrs. Washington, ma'am, I am so sorry. Please, please come and sit down right here." He gestured to the comfortable chair near his desk. "May I get you some water, ma'am? Where is your cane? Where are your glasses?" Officer Henley stared at the desk sergeant. "Sarge, what are you doing? She's being processed for disorderly conduct." Sergeant Calloway turned slowly. His face was no longer white. It was bright red now. "Brad, step back from her right now. Take your hand off her arm, right now." Officer Henley let go of Eleanor's arm slowly. Sergeant Calloway turned back to Eleanor Washington. "Ma'am, I am going to call your son immediately. Please sit down. Can I get you anything?" Eleanor Washington smiled gently, the first time she had smiled in 3 hours. "Sergeant Calloway, please call my son. Tell him to come to the station. Right away. Tell him to bring his uniform. And please, tell him to bring the body camera footage policy from his office desk. He will know which one I mean." Officer Brad Henley was now standing in the middle of the lobby with his mouth open. He did not understand what was happening. 11 other officers in the lobby had gone completely silent. A young female officer named Rebecca Torres slowly walked over and quietly handed Eleanor a fresh cup of water. Then she walked back to her desk and started typing furiously on her computer. She had just realized who the elderly woman was. Police Chief Marcus Washington arrived at the station 17 minutes later. He was wearing his full chief's uniform, the polished badge on his chest, the 4 gold stars on his collar. He walked through the front door of the station at 3:12 in the afternoon. He did not look at any of the officers in the lobby. He walked straight to his mother. He knelt down in front of her chair. He took both of her hands in his. "Mama, are you hurt anywhere?" Eleanor Washington shook her head slowly. "No, baby, I am not hurt. But that young man over there pulled me out of my booth. He took my cane. He left my glasses on the floor of the diner. He did not let me make my phone call. He drove me here in the back of his patrol car. And in his own words, my crime was sitting down in the wrong neighborhood." Marcus Washington stood up slowly. He was 48 years old. He was 6 feet 4 inches tall. He was the first black police chief in the history of Riverside County, Tennessee. And he was the son of Eleanor Washington. He turned around very slowly to face Officer Brad Henley. The lobby of the Riverside County Police Station went completely silent. Chief Washington looked at the young officer for almost 10 full seconds without saying a single word. Then he spoke. His voice was calm, steady, the voice of a man who had been waiting his whole life for this exact moment. Officer Henley, my name is Police Chief Marcus Washington. I am the first black police chief in the history of this county. The woman sitting in the chair behind me is Mrs. Eleanor Washington. She is my mother. She is also a retired civil rights attorney with 41 years of legal experience. She has personally argued 17 cases before the Supreme Court of the state of Tennessee. Her older brother James Washington was beaten to death by police officers at Murphy's Family Diner on October 14, 1963. Today is the 62nd anniversary of his death. My mother has driven to that diner every single year for the last 40 years to honor his memory. And today, on this exact anniversary, you decided to drag her out of her booth by her arm because she sat down in what you called the wrong neighborhood. Officer Henley's face had gone completely white. His mouth was open. He could not speak. Chief Washington was not finished. Officer Henley, you are placed on immediate administrative leave without pay. Your badge and your service weapon will be surrendered before you leave this building today. The Internal Affairs Division will be reviewing your body camera footage from this afternoon, the dash camera footage from your patrol vehicle, and the cell phone footage that has already been emailed to my office by 4 separate witnesses from inside the diner. I have also already requested a full review of every single arrest you have made in the last 14 months, by every single black resident of this county that you have come into contact with. If we find a pattern of similar behavior, you will be facing criminal charges in addition to termination. Chief Washington paused. He looked at Sergeant Jim Calloway. Sergeant, please escort Officer Henley to my office. He will surrender his badge and weapon there. Then he looked at Crystal Davis through the glass front doors of the police station. The young waitress had followed the patrol car to the station because she had panicked once she realized the elderly woman had been calm and quiet the entire time. Crystal was crying outside on the sidewalk. Chief Washington did not address her in the lobby. He simply turned to one of his other officers. Tom, please go outside and inform the young woman that the diner she works at will be receiving a formal civil rights inquiry from this office before the end of the week. The owner will need to provide a complete employee training history. Within 48 hours, the cell phone footage from inside the diner was on every major news network in the country. The story exploded. The video of a small, elderly black woman being dragged out of a booth by her arm, on the 62nd anniversary of her brother's death by police violence at the same diner, became one of the most shared civil rights stories of the year. Within 72 hours, Officer Brad Henley had been formally terminated. Within 30 days, he had been charged with 3 separate counts, including assault on an elderly person and unlawful arrest. The Internal Affairs review of his 14-month career found that he had used excessive force against 14 separate black residents. 6 of those cases were reopened. Crystal Davis, the waitress, was fired by Murphy's Family Diner within 72 hours. The diner itself faced a complete community boycott for 3 months. The owner, a white man named Frank Murphy who was 74 years old, eventually walked into a community meeting hosted by Chief Washington and apologized publicly. Frank Murphy then announced that the diner would be permanently closed. The building was donated to a small civil rights organization founded by Eleanor Washington. The building reopened 9 months later as the James Washington Civil Rights Memorial and Community Center, named after Eleanor's brother who had died there in 1963. Eleanor cut the ribbon herself with her son, the police chief, standing beside her in his full-dress uniform. 6 months after the incident, the entire police department of Riverside County underwent the most comprehensive bias training program in the history of Tennessee law enforcement. Chief Marcus Washington personally led the training sessions. The opening session of every single training class began with the same exact words. Officers, the first lesson I want to teach you today is one my mother taught me when I was 12 years old. She said, Marcus, when you put on a badge, you are wearing the trust of every single person in your community, including the ones who do not look like you, including the ones who walk slower than you, including the ones who eat alone in diners on Tuesday afternoons. My mother is sitting in the back of this room today. Her name is Mrs. Eleanor Washington. I would like every officer in this room to look at her face right now, because she is exactly the kind of citizen you have been sworn to protect, and the day you forget that, you should turn in your badge. So here is what I want to leave you with tonight. Officer Brad Henley spent 14 months wearing a badge in a county where he believed he had the power to decide who belonged in which neighborhood. He thought a small, elderly black woman in a navy dress was someone he could humiliate without consequence. He did not know that her son had been wearing a different kind of badge for 25 years. A badge that her son had chosen to wear specifically to protect old women like her from young men like him. Eleanor Washington spent her whole life teaching her son to fix a broken system from the inside. And on the 62nd anniversary of her brother's death, her son finally got to teach the system back. Think about the Eleanor Washingtons in your community right now. The quiet, elderly black women in navy dresses with pearl earrings, the grandmothers who attended segregated schools, the retired civil rights attorneys you might walk past in the parking lot without ever knowing what they have done for this country. The world has been deciding their worth based on the color of their skin for 70 years. The world has been wrong every single time. If this story moved you tonight, do me one final favor. Smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next story. And drop a comment below telling me about an Eleanor in your own life. The quiet elderly woman whose dignity nobody bothered to ask about. Because the world is full of black grandmothers raising sons who grow up to become the very people we depend on to protect them. And the only question that matters tonight is whether we are humble enough to honor them long before we ever find out who their children turned out to be. See you in the next story.